Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aaron Smith. I'm the CEO of the Energy and Environmental Building Alliance. Welcome to our EBA podcast webinar series. I'm really pleased today to be joined by our good friend, Rob Howard. Got to see Rob a couple weeks ago at the EBA Summit in St. Paul. Rob, that was your first visit to Minneapolis, St. Paul, right? What'd you think? Can you hear me?
Oh, I lost you for a second there.
Oh, okay. I just wondered what you thought of the summit in St. Paul.
Yeah, I mean, the EBA Summit is always one of my, you know, favorite conferences of the year, and I think this is one of the best ones that I've ever been to. I thought the celebration of the history of the organization and some of the people who were founding board members was
Yeah.
just such a classic way to kick it off. That was really
Yeah.
special.
I learned a lot that I didn't know. So that was fantastic. Uh, but importantly, Rob, you're joining us from up by Appalachian State. How are you faring? We're last year, of course, we had about 37 people that couldn't come to the summit because of Hurricane Helene. How are you all doing? We're excited to hear from you today. We've got Ankur joining us here, but just to check in with you, how is everyone?
Yeah, I mean, a year later, we're certainly bouncing back well, I think. Infrastructure for the most part, is back to at least, the major highways and, water systems and things like that that
Yeah.
were, severely damaged for the most part have now been repaired. So, yeah, I mean, we still have a lot of work to do in terms of housing, which is obviously what we're going to be talking about today. And yeah, there's existing homes that are still in need of repair and some that, are not able to be repaired that need to be replaced. So there's still plenty of work to do. And I
Yeah.
guess one of the things that we're promoting, like we talked a lot about at the summit this year, is resilience, seems
Yeah.
to be the word of the day.
Well, I thought it was interesting, Rob, that we had three teams from the Buildings Next program, which you were a mentor for at Appalachian State. And each of those teams, of course, the one from your backyard, we had one from that was did a study on China, and then we had one from Ball State University as well. The core message of all those young folks was resiliency. It didn't matter if it was in Indiana or in West Virginia or in China. There were different issues that those populations were facing around resiliency. So I thought that was really, boy, I know your team touched a lot of people's hearts at the summit, and it was so well received.
Appreciate that. Yeah, they did a great job on that project, the design project, and on their presentation.
Fantastic. Well, Rob, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more and Ankur, and then Ankur will have you share the presentation. But it's great to have you both here, and we have the Q&A section open. So I think as we go through, pop things in the Q&A. We'll either type answers to those or we'll break in for questions as we go through. So again, I'll stay on, of course, and welcome to both of you. And I'm looking forward to this presentation.
Yeah, so I'm Rob Howard. As Aaron said, I'm a building science lecturer at Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina, and then the principal of Howard Building Science, a builder developer based in Granite Falls, North Carolina, just down the mountain from Boone. Yeah, and I guess most recently have been working with Ankur and ADL Ventures on an EDA tech hub effort to promote the use of
And
industrialized offsite
Rob,
construction.
just for folks, EDA is an economic development area.
Economic Development Administration, yeah,
Yeah,
as in the US EDA. Yep.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so we ADL, Ankur can talk more about that since that's his company, but I've been working with them on this Tech Hub consortium build for about 2 years now, and trying to, I guess, do sort of a resource map of various types of offsite construction resources that we have in the region that we can bring to bear on the affordable housing crisis that obviously impacts the entire country, but we have felt, perhaps at a deeper level in the Appalachian region that was impacted by Helene.
Great.
Arthur, you wanna go?
And you
Oh,
are
I think you're
muted.
on mute.
Yeah. There you go.
Right. Hopefully this works better. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Ankur Dobriel, ADL Ventures. Like Rob said, we've been working together on this effort for just over a year now. But Rob and I go way back. I think we met first in 2018. I was at that time at Module Housing, I think, who has also been on a couple of webinars here. Maybe the last year I presented one with Drew from our team. So yeah, my background is primarily civil engineering, and over the last 9 years or so have been heavily focused on industrialized offsite construction. And yeah, I look forward to chatting through our effort in North Carolina and how we're using industrialized construction to accelerate housing deployment, but then B, also think of how to bring more businesses, more investment, and jobs to the Western North Carolina region. Let me know when it would be a good time to start sharing a presentation.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't know
you I think you can share it now.
okay. Oh, you guys can see all my tabs. All right.
Perfect.
Great. Can you guys see it okay?
Yes.
Great. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work going on between the two companies right now, but I think the focus for today would be our efforts in North Carolina, and specifically around rapidly deployable housing and industrialized construction. Uh, our engagement actually started before the hurricane hit, but we had to kind of change course in the first quarter of the work that we were doing because of the hurricane, and it's kind of been a great experience going through that. Now, just to level set, just a couple of slides of background. So industrialized construction, and people typically, when they think of industrialized construction, they're thinking of modular or panelized. We're very technology agnostic at this point. So industrialized construction would mean essentially moving parts of construction into an offsite facility that could have advanced manufacturing capabilities, systems and process in place to kind of churn out the same product again and again, and basically be able to realize the benefits of economics of scale, which typically on on-site construction, because we build each project one at a time, is hard to realize. So industrialized construction again would be moving those materials, labors, and process from on-site to the prefabricated off-site facilities. Obviously, some high-level benefits would include reduction of construction timelines. You're now, because you've moved a significant portion off-site, your work can go on in parallel on the site and in the factory, and you save a ton of time. Actually, we're seeing anywhere between 25 to 50% reduction in timelines. Cost savings really come with scale once you start building the same product again and again with the same processes. We see some incremental benefits there. Quality and efficiency. Folks who work in the factory, they're doing the same job all the time, get really good at it. They get faster at it. So again, adds to the reduction in timeline, but also keeps the quality up. And then overall waste reduction. If you visit any of these factories, they will tell you how every piece of material they buy is used in one way or the other, whether it's scrap lumber or drywall, and they try and use or reuse as much of that as possible while they're building these in the factory. Now, another reason why industrialized construction is very fundamental to our effort is because we're trying to look at it not just from a construction standpoint, but then also looking at the entire ecosystem. So three things we've been looking at is productization. How do we, sort of move away from building snowflakes, especially for affordable or disaster recovery housing, and kind of go and move towards a product. Product could be floor plans, could be specifications, could be other certifications. So again, there is variability in what that product refers to. Demand aggregation, we can build the best product we want, but if there is no demand and not enough homes are being built, then we will not realize the benefits we spoke about on the previous slide. And then modernization. I think just being able to do these things in a 21st century way, in a facility, good working conditions for employees, all of that is a key element of industrialized construction. Now, just again, coming to the second piece of this, which would be why we're so focused on rapid deployment using industrialized construction. As we all know, there was a hurricane in North Carolina, just over a year ago. 126,000 people displaced. A lot of people were still on vouchers when we started this work early in the year. Not all of them have transitioned back to their original housing situation. A lot of them are still in kind of transitional housing. We need to build thousands of homes and build them better. Otherwise, another disaster could bring us back to the same location. And, obviously the estimates vary for what this damage was depending on housing versus infrastructure. But several tens of millions of dollars in property damages were incurred, which was a major disaster for the region. And these disasters keep increasing, and their impact on the population keeps going up and up. And I won't spend too much time on this, but just generally, talking about this is important because it'll help set up context for what we discuss beyond. But you can see kind of a graph of the frequency of billion-dollar weather-related disasters, and they seem to be going up over the last 5 to 8 years, which is definitely not a good thing. So now that we've kind of gone through the two bases of where we were, Tech Hubs essentially is a EDA, Economic Development Administration program, that aims at bringing new businesses, jobs, and investments to a particular region. The EDA has 31 designated hubs in their first or in their allocation last year. And then they also picked a few regions to do a planning grant. So we were a recipient of the planning grant, which was $500,000 to basically write a plan for a future tech hub location. This was specifically in Western North Carolina, highlighted by the core region here. So 4 counties, Alexander, Burke, Calvert, and Catawba County in Western North Carolina. And as you can see, we're right next to or in the region that was the most impacted by the hurricane. So it was industrialized construction was part of the tech hub strategy early on, but after the hurricane, it became even more apparent that has to be the focus here. Rob, am I forgetting anything? You were part of the program a lot before I was, so please feel free to stop me and add context.
Nope, you're doing great.
Alrighty. So our final strategy was submitted earlier in the year, but essentially we focused on 5 main things. And I know the focus today was about, just rapid deployment of housing, but in our ecosystem approach, there's a lot more that had to be put in place before we started building any houses. So outside of deployment of that housing, we focused on how to bring more investments, how to help local technology companies and local innovation move forward, maybe set up their own factory. How do we build a workforce? I mean, we can keep saying we want to build 3,000 homes, 5,000 homes, 2,000 homes, but does the region have enough people to be able to build those, and enough skilled people to be able to build those? And how do we get those jobs out there. So that obviously involves a lot of regulatory and regional government involvement, forming the last two pillars of our strategy. So we've been working with the Western Piedmont Council of Governments, which represents the four counties we were talking about earlier, and they've been instrumental in trying to help us with incrementally bringing pieces of this plan. But the goal is to submit for a much larger implementation grant next year. So just to think of high level timeline, early last year we started working on this effort, and in November, I think we sort of geared all of our efforts towards the industrialized construction and housing recovery piece. And then through the year of 2025, we've been working through our strategy, working through putting together pilot projects, which we'll talk about in a bit. And all of this is gearing towards a significantly larger implementation grant for next year. I think depending on who the administrator for the funding would be, the number or the timeline moves about a bit, but generally the plan is to have this submitted in 2026. Now, coming to deployment, how do we deploy the number of units needed for disaster recovery or just generally housing shortage? We started putting together a consortium of vendors, let's say, or teams that could deploy housing, and that obviously includes on-site contractors, designers, factories, and there might be a couple of other agencies, inspection agencies that are not listed here, but we started listing down everybody who was available in the region, not just in North Carolina, but surrounding regions as well. So South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, everything was within 3-4 hours commute was looked into, and we created sort of this list of available resources, and we quickly realized if we put all of our efforts together, we could deploy up to 300 units a month, and that's upwards of 3,000 units a year. So if the shortage was 3,000 homes, that could really be solved if the will was there. So that was the whole idea of trying to put together the capacity. And when we went and spoke to each of those manufacturers, we also realized that they kind of had slightly differing processes, slightly differing floor plans that they're used to building. So we also started thinking about how can we standardize some of these product specs and certifications on the tech hub side, so that when we do deploy these units with the vendors, they can deliver the same quality and the same type of product. So a lot of different avenues were looked into. Some of them included, different typologies of industrialized construction. So panels, bathroom pods, full volumetric boxes. We even looked into 3D printing. And then how do we take all of that and work within a standard set of specifications? There were a few we were looking at, but the pilot we'll talk about in a few. We've specifically focused on fortified program from Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the Institute of basically building insurers. Is that accurate?
IBHS, yeah, Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety.
Yeah, that program combined with the Zero Energy Ready Home has kind of been the base of all our specs. And then we have continued to work with the regional and national labs to get their feedback on the type of product, the type of specs based on the region that we'll be deploying these homes in. And these are just some examples of what they could look like, what our initial catalog could look like. It's become a lot more refined since this slide was created, but generally gives you the idea. We don't want too many bells and whistles. We're just building simple starter homes, 1 to 3 bedrooms, reasonably sized, anywhere between 600 square feet to 1,500 square feet. There is also a sort of a backyard home, like an ADU model at 275 square feet, but generally we're in the 1 to 3 bedroom region. Now, coming to pilots, and Rob, I think this would be a section that I think would be helpful for you to take on, because the two things we'll talk about is one, a pilot home as we wait for funding for larger projects. Rob was gracious enough to build one of the homes in his current project as fortified and energy ready, which will now form sort of a basis of the homes we build moving forward. And then we also have a 44 unit project ready to go, pending some federal funds. So Rob, why don't you just cover those couple of things?
Yeah, sure. If you want, yeah, there you go. So this is the home that Ankur was referring to as sort of the pilot. So you guys may have heard me talk about the Duke Street Cottages project in years past. This has been ongoing for almost 3 years now, and we're almost built out in this what I call a pocket neighborhood development. The first 9 homes were built with SIPs, structural insulated panels, but the last 2 homes are being built full volumetric modular. This one was built by a factory in Virginia. The company's called Cardinal Homes, and they're about 200 miles away from this site. So it's just 2 modules. As you can see, they were stacked to create a 2-story home, and it's fairly small footprint, 16, it's actually 15.9 wide by 36 feet long. So around 1,100 and change heated square feet. And we just set this, 2 weeks ago. So these pictures are very recent, and this is my my first actual set experience. I'd seen lots of videos, but never been on site for one of these. So I have to admit it was a little nerve-wracking to see that module swinging through the air. But clearly the crane operator had done this a lot. They know what they're doing, and the set crew that we hired was fantastic. So did a really good job. That entire process of grabbing those boxes and sitting them on the foundation and stitching them together took less than half a day. So I guess my only regret is that I didn't have the other house ready to set on the same day, because I definitely think we could have set 2 in one day and just been more efficient with our crane time. But again, this is intended to be a pilot, and we're learning as we go. So yeah, from my perspective, it has gone really smoothly thus far.
Rob, was that roof one module as well? So it was pre-done roof and just got dropped in, or was that built on top after?
So it's actually built in the factory, and the roof hinges. So
Yeah, so it drops
holds
down.
flat in essence. Yeah, for transportation.
Yeah.
And then, but to your point, the crane has pick points on the roof, where it literally raises it in place, and then the set crew just nails it off. I don't think you can see the knee walls in any of these shots, but the knee walls literally just flip down and get nailed in place. Those gable ends were actually prefabricated in the factory and basically just attached to the end of the modules for shipping. And then that was the last piece that the crane lifted up, were the 2 gable ends. And yeah, again, that whole really setting up the crane and breaking it down took longer than setting the modules and lifting the roof in place. I mean, it was probably less than 2 hours total of actual lifting and setting.
And that's the goal with our at scale projects, to get anywhere between 4 to 5 houses set in a day. One house would take anywhere between 90 minutes to 2 hours. And on the roof piece, we have tried homes in the past outside of this project, where the roof box is its own thing. Sometimes if there is no sort of living space in that box, the shipping costs for that do not make sense. But if you're building 3 stories and there is a bedroom or a bathroom, then the roof can be completely finished and built in the factory as well as part of that roof box. And in terms of set, it takes about the same time. It's obviously much easier if the roof's built completely and you stack them like Lego blocks. And so we will be trying as part of one of our designs in the future to be able to just do that, where the roof is completely done in the factory. Rob, how long did it take you to set the crane and do all of that?
The crane arrived around 8:30 that morning. We were setting by around 10:30, 11 o'clock. And then I think they were completely broken down and, exiting by 1:30, something like that.
Yeah, and there are 9 homes next to this already, so this was not though the pictures I put on there look like it's an empty site, but no, it's surrounded by other homes. And a lot of times you have to lift above homes and just get a bigger crane. Those sets can be a little bit nerve-wracking, and just if anybody's curious, typically 15 miles per hour or lower winds are safe, considered safe. I would say 15 to 25 is like a gray area. Everything above 25, I mean, the crane companies typically will stop the set. But they will set if it's raining, if it's snowing, they don't stop as long as the winds are not above that 15 mile per hour range.
Can I ask if it had been raining, I mean, Rob, how concerned are you about weather conditions as you're looking at your day to set? I assume you don't want to get wet in the top of it, or is it completely polyed over the top and you're kind of peeling that out as you go? How do you think about that?
Yeah, again, you can't really see it in these photos, but once the roof is folded out and nailed in place, it's basically it's got underlayment on it and shingles
Okay.
for
I see it there.
the
Yeah.
bulk of it. So there's
Yeah.
a little bit of additional underlayment and shingles left to do. But yeah, by the time they left at again 1:30, the house was dry.
Yeah. And if it had rained, the other option could also have been that, and I've seen this before, is you leave this
Leave it on.
temporary cover
Yeah.
on, and then at least the boxes can be set and you can come back the next day maybe with a smaller crane to just do the knee walls.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
I forgot to tell you this part, but we actually decided to take the tarp that they used for protection during shipping, and we put it in the crawl space as our vapor barrier. So, I mean,
Nice.
I'm like, I said to the set crew, what are you guys going to do with that tarp? And they said, I don't know. Do you got a dumpster we can put it in? I'm like, no, I don't have a dumpster you can put it in, but I have a crawl space you can put it in.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, there is that's still one of the side of like waste control that is not figured out completely. Most manufacturers, like Rob said, will leave all of that stuff on site, and it's mostly a one-time use. I remember when we were at Module, we were trying to experiment with reusable membranes. You could use them maybe 4 times, 5 if you're lucky. Still better than one. It costs about 3 times as much, but you could use it that one extra time. So eventually it kind of paid for itself. But it was heavy, and if you're not careful, if the set crew is not careful, they could like really damage it in the first try itself. So there was a little bit of a learning curve, but yeah, there are companies out there now thinking about this. And there's also a temporary, and you can't see it here, but typically to get the water that can accumulate on the top, to the sides and just flow over. Typically, there'll be like this wooden rib cage they'll build, and those are typically like just 1-bys, piece of like just a bunch of 1-bys, and some companies are also looking at prefabricating that with some kind of a metal system where they could just bring that back with the trailers and don't have to throw all of that away. I don't think we did that on this one, but it's something that we would like to try in the future. Rob, you want to quickly go through just some of the highlights of the specs?
Yeah, we said before, that everything I've built at Duke Street Cottages has been certified zero energy ready, and this will be my first fortified home. So, it takes a lot of coordination with the factory to make sure that all those construction details are being followed in their process. But then, of course, there's also some additional strapping and tie down, requirements that we have to do in the field once the modules are set. But yeah, I think this is going to be an important part of not only, my company's approach to construction from here on out, but certainly something that we're trying to promote through the Tech Hub efforts as well. And we actually are taking a group down to the IBHS Research Center in South Carolina next Wednesday for their open house event. So I was down there for a training probably 10 years ago when I was working for Habitat for Humanity, and haven't been back since, but looking forward to seeing what's going on down there. And then, everybody wants to know about construction cost, of course. And I mean, while I don't know that we're really going to save a lot of money on construction by switching to modular, as Ankur pointed out earlier, we're definitely saving time, and time is money. So, speed matters. But of course, costs are relative, in terms of real estate values around the country. So, for some people, when I say that we're selling this house for $299,000, they think, oh, wow, that's really cheap, and other people think, oh my gosh, that's really expensive. So I guess it just depends on, where you're calling in from today as to how that might appear. But if you can build and sell a house for less than $300,000 in my part of the country right now, you're doing something, especially one that is zero energy ready and fortified. So yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, just to kind of unpack that a little bit. What was the difference in conveying the zero energy ready home requirements and the fortified requirements to a factory and their ability to digest it versus perhaps subcontractors and their ability to digest it? Do you have a good feel for that? And again, I think there's
Yeah, it's a
another
great
piece, like,
question.
are there available trades? You've got a marketplace where hundreds and hundreds of homes need to be rebuilt. Like, can you get the plumber there the day that you need them? Right. So I mean, I think there's a bigger workforce issue that's going on here besides just the price, right?
Yeah, and I mean, most of Western North Carolina is fairly rural. I mean, Hickory is, well, Asheville, I guess, most people think of as, kind of the largest city in Western North Carolina, but Hickory is, the area that I'm in, and, decent sized city. But Granite Falls, where Duke Street Cottages is located, is, just a small mill town outside of Hickory. So, yeah, I mean, we struggle to find skilled trades in this area. In fact, it's not uncommon to bring subs from Charlotte up here, an hour away to work. And so, I've been doing this over 20 years, and I've never seen it this bad, in terms of trying to find trade partners, to get a house built, in a more traditional sense. So yeah, the way I'm looking at the modular factory is, they're kind of like a super sub. And these people are on their payroll. They're coming to work every day in a controlled environment of a factory. They're able to put the work at more ergonomic heights, so people aren't breaking their backs and up on ladders all the time. So it's
Right.
a much safer environment. But yeah, there's huge advantages for certainly the product being built indoors, but also for the laborers being able to work in that environment. So yeah, go ahead, Ankur.
I was just going to add, Rob, one extra thing there would be that on the day that these units are installed, they're kind of at the end of the day, they walk away with the units being sort of weather protected. So even if you're not able to get the plumber or the roofer in right the next day, nothing happens. I had the I don't know, fortune or misfortune of setting 3 homes a couple of days before the COVID shutdown. And for 2 months, we couldn't get anybody there. So we were just basically maintaining the units, brooming the roof a couple of times. But even the temporary roofs and the temporary closeouts helped and sustained for those. Typically, a month is what people recommend the max. But if you take care of it, you might be able to kind of extend that. But coming back to it, those are sort of extreme outliers. A lot of times you call a plumber and they're like, I'll be there next week. So at least for that week, you will be protected from any kind of weather occurrences.
Yeah.
And then one thing I would like to address on the cost as well. Yeah, like Rob said, depending on where you're in the country, like the same house, Rob's cost to build would be around 225. I'm up here in Pittsburgh, and that same number will be 350, maybe even 375 to build the same kind of house. So I guess that comes and goes with A, the cost of construction, but then B, availability of labor as well. So being able to, you know, almost take 70%, 80% of the trades and put them in a factory. And that's about 50-60% of the cost is insanely insanely helpful. So yeah, and we are trying to develop cost models where we can assess some of the intangible benefits a little bit easier. What does finishing a home in 6 months instead of a year mean for a contractor? If we can deploy 100 homes in the same time as somebody does 50, what does that mean to the local, AJ or to the local city? And it's sometimes hard to put a number on that, but what we are putting together an initial model in the next few months to try and figure out what are the operational benefits of doing this as well. Because the bottom line sometimes is the same. Then you put on the zero energy ready certification and fortified, and it'd be silly of us to assume that the costs will come exactly the same as an on-site build. There is obviously a premium to that, and then hopefully with operations those are offset. But again, this is still a year into this effort. Rob, what I want to bring up next is sort of the larger project. So maybe you want to do a quick 2-minute about this as well.
Yeah, I just want to just circle back on Aaron's original question, though. I definitely think it's easier for a factory to comply with checklists because that's how they operate every day than, most of the construction sites I've been involved on, in more of a traditional stick-built fashion. So I think they're set up for success. Where we did run into some challenges, though, I saw Ryan Mears is on today. So, getting my HERS rater to go, drive 2 hours, to a factory out in the middle of nowhere and do a, pre-drywall air sealing insulation inspection was, it's just different. This particular rater had never stepped foot in a modular factory before, so I mean, it was a great learning experience, and they were able to give some constructive feedback, to the factory on a few things. So I mean, everybody benefits from that, but because I believe this is going to scale, and we're going to need, more homes that are rated in factories. I know ResNet is working on basically a standard or a system, to address that. So I think same could be said for Fortified, though. Getting an evaluator to go out and inspect a module while it's on the line. You don't want to hold up that process. So yeah, there's work to be done there to try to iron out the kinks and keep this, keep that speed, moving.
Yeah,
Great,
and a
thank
lot of
you.
the work right now is being done by third parties as well. Inspections are typically dependent and differ based on where you're putting these on a state-by-state basis. So every state kind of has their own way of working. Most states are now moving towards having a third party do most of these inspections in the factory, and that's typically been the faster way to do it. And in some states, it takes a slightly longer time depending on what kind of staff they have in-house
Mhm.
to publish the permits essentially. But I think in North Carolina it was all third party based, so it was relatively straightforward.
Mhm. Rob, can I ask kind of an in the weeds question?
Yeah, sure.
I'm just wondering how, okay, so you've got the wall to foundation connections. How do you deal with that on site, right? Because now you're bringing this module in, you're dropping it on the foundation. Are you oh, and I've had to do this before too, where we had to open up a small section to show that we were making that connection between the foundation. And I think what we found was like you can't put you can't put it in beforehand. It was better off to epoxy it in after. Can you just comment on what you found to be the winning formula there?
Yeah, actually, Ankur, if you back up to that previous slide, you can see some of the, I guess I'll say, leave outs where we had to come back and add some strapping to connect the
Mhm.
boxes together. I don't
I
know
see.
if you
So
can make
that's
it out in
like
those.
the front face of um, the house there. You've got your strapping mounted vertically, and that's your tie down for wind resistance. But I was particularly interested in your foundation connection. How did you um, envision that?
So the mud sill, the green plate is already on the foundation, prior to set. So
Yeah.
and the first floor module, of course, all these modules have a floor system built under them. So
Okay.
once the module is set on that green plate, then you're either nailing it down, screwing it down, or using straps, to connect
Yeah.
those two. But yeah,
So I think the answer would be that strapping would be a lot easier, better way to go because now you're just bringing it up and meeting and you're getting your nailing or screwing pattern. So you just strapped it all. Awesome.
exactly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was part of the scope of work for the set crew.
Mhm.
They call it set and stitch. So they're setting it and stitching those boxes together and tying
Yeah.
everything down to the foundation.
Nice. Nice. Great. Thank you.
Yep. And then if you want to skip ahead to that, so this is what we're viewing as another pilot project in a way for the Tech Hub effort, but there's a small nonprofit based in Burke County, Morganton, North Carolina, which again was one of the counties in Western North Carolina that was impacted by Hurricane Helene. But Open Hearts Place is similar to Habitat for Humanity in some ways, though they have a slightly different model for, I guess, helping people transition out of bad housing situations and, sort of like a transitional housing model and then preparing them for future homeownership in their program. So they've built, I think, 5 to 10 houses in Burke County thus far. But one of my development partners actually donated about 6 acres of land to them last year, and they worked with it's in Hildebrand is the municipality. So they worked with the town to create this site plan, and it's already been platted for 44 lots. And our intention is to use a variety of different offsite construction techniques to build these homes and use it as a way to promote this type of construction for rapid recovery, but also to promote this notion that Ankur was describing earlier of a catalog or a more established set of architectural plans that makes it easier for essentially any factory to grab one of those plans and put it on the line so that we can deliver houses more quickly. Anything else you wanted to cover on that?
No,
No, no.
I just wanted to maybe say that I like what you said, Ankur, about you're agnostic to the inbound system, and that allows you some flexibility. Where, I mean, my intuition is that, yeah, it would be great to do modular construction, but if that factory was full during your gap, you could then shift and do it and panelize from a different sub, and you can keep the project moving very, very quickly. It allows a lot of flexibility. Was that the goal of your approach?
Yeah, I think flexibility is one thing, but then the other piece of this is we also want to demonstrate through these pilot projects that different types of systems can work, and as businesses new or existing are looking to expand in the area, we're not picking one particular direction to say this is better. Um, the
Mm-hmm.
flexibility comes from, yes, maybe, a lot of the construction business is relationship based. And so there is that piece of the flexibility where people can bring in their own manufacturer, their own contractor. But then also on the other side, in Hickory, where Rob's right now, it's much easier and relatively flat to bring a 16 feet by 50 feet long box to set on a site. Now, if the same thing was to be in Boone, it would probably still be possible depending on where the major streets can take you, but
Yeah.
everywhere else you'll kind of be limited. And then the panelized systems can really come into the picture and deliver basically the same product, same quality. So I think that's the biggest flexibility piece of this. But for the most part, it
Yeah.
was, yeah, us evaluating all the different technologies and capabilities in the Western North Carolina region available to us.
And I think that's an interesting point, right? That you almost need to survey the community first and see, can you get a flatbed with a certain height on it up and in, and what's the power line situation, and that may kind of predispose you to panelized versus modular, right?
Yeah, and not to say that
Yeah.
those things have to be exclusive of each other. In a perfect world, the modules would be built by those panels, and then you would ship
Mm-hmm.
them to site, right? Now, those companies do not yet exist where they combine both those processes. Some companies do it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they build panels within their factory and then they put them on as
Mm-hmm.
walls. Um, but are they doing it on the job site? Would they sell just panels if we were to just buy panels? And so that's the goal here. Like if we can figure out like the minimum viable product, which in this case
Mm-hmm.
would be the specs and the plans, how they're put together is like if somebody wants to do a non-industrialized construction stick build project with the same plans, are we going to say no? We're not. Um, but we would encourage them to incorporate something, even if it's like open panels, or maybe they mess with bathroom pods or some kind
Mm-hmm.
of industrialized technology, so that people can test different things out.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
I think that's pretty much it on our end.
Mm.
I guess I just had one. I think Rob already covered this, but I can share the slide deck with you, so you can
Oh,
pass
hey,
it around.
listen, with this group, I think we're always excited to see your scores. So we can we can talk about those next.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
of course
I don't know if
I haven't
yeah, I don't know, Rob, if you
Yeah,
have them in
so
here,
these
but go ahead.
certificates are actually, yeah, these are from one of the SIPS houses, that we built early in that project. But
and
so, one of the
you
things
did I think we heard about your existing homes with eco panels.
Yeah.
And have you done a blower door test yet? Have you got your final HERS scores? What can you comment on? Where is it ending up? And you know,
so
thoughts
we
there.
have not tested, yeah, we
Okay.
have not tested a modular home yet.
Yeah.
Again, this one is still, we're still trimming it out. So
Mhm.
I'm anxious, to see how it's going to compare performance wise. And,
Yeah.
it's not, I don't expect it, I don't expect the blower door, to be as low on this home as the SIPS homes. We were regularly getting under one ACH 50 with
Yeah.
our SIPS houses,
Right.
so, I mean, if I'm under two, I'll be thrilled.
Okay. So that was
But
kind of
yeah, we'll
in your mind, your goal was like, yeah, we're kind of going to be, if I get to 1.5, I'm super happy.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
with zero
for
energy
sure.
ready, with the modeling, it depends where you want to be. At module, we were, I think, till about last year before I left, we were targeting for the ACH to be under 2. But
Mhm.
it takes a little bit of a practice to get there. When we started out, I think we were in the threes 3.5, because the factories, and especially if you keep changing factories, you kind of have to get the new ones up to speed as well. Last year, because the factory came in house, it was a little bit easier to track that. But even working with several different factories and manufacturers, after you build, let's say, 10 of these, you know 9 out of 10 places where the leak is typically going to happen, and so you just plan your contingencies around that. So before the blow door test, we would have our contractor with a checklist that we prepared go around and just do his thing. But I think on the eco panels, Rob, the one that's on the screen, I think that's for the homes. The eco panels, you were getting around 44 HERS score.
Yeah, I guess my question was, what's your modeled HERS score for this iteration of the modular, volumetric modular home? We right around
Yeah,
that
I'm
44.
hoping it's going to be in the low to mid 40s, but
Nice.
jury's still out.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. And then Rob, you talked about the zero energy ready components of having the EV charger on the house. You're having it solar ready? Of course, one of your and I's favorite topics is heat pump technology. Any things that you learned through any of those kind of high performance products in this process?
So the modular factory does not install HVAC, so I have to do that on site. So
Okay.
that's fairly easy. I've got plenty of connections in that world, but
Yeah.
I also had them leave out the water heater because they normally use a conventional electric storage heater. So,
Sure.
I'm doing a heat pump water heater.
Nice.
They don't do appliances in this particular factory, but I already had a relationship with LG,
Yeah.
through a local supplier that, they order them, warehouse them, install them, service them as necessary. So I've got a really good, vendor relationship there. So that's kind of easy. I mean,
Fantastic.
quite frankly, the modular factory is doing a lot of the things that I don't particularly enjoy about construction, to be
I
very
mean,
transparent.
I got to tell you, Rob, like I'm thinking about this, and you and I have talked plenty of times. And I think we always talked about how do you get rid of the brain damage part of all this, right? And it just feels like this is getting rid of a lot of what you think about as a builder, right? Is that you found to be true?
Absolutely. Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, I guess, my the thing at the top of my list of things I don't like about construction is it's not that I don't like drywall as a product. It's just that I don't like the hanging, the finishing, the mess that's involved with the drywall process. And, quite frankly, I don't think modular factories like it any better than I do, but,
No, but
it
it's
sure
over
is nice of
there.
them to do that for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I assume, if we can kind of talk about the drywall, you're expecting from the factory like a level 4 type of a finish. I've heard some people say that obviously you've got a little bit of on the truck. Did you have any things that need to be patched up after it was set, or did it
Yeah.
come through? Yeah, that's like
So
it's gonna happen,
Oliver,
right?
yeah, I mean, if you'll scroll back to those set pictures one more time. So my salesman from Cardinal Homes came out
Mhm.
and did a walkthrough with me, right after the modules were set.
Yeah.
And we were kind of going through the inventory of what they call ship loose items, that are shipped inside the modules just to make sure we got everything we needed to finish the trim out. And one of the things we were looking for were, cracks in the drywall, stress cracks or, anything like that. And, these guys have done it for so many years, they can tell you exactly where they expect those
They
cracks to be.
they
And
almost
we
know,
literally
right?
found,
Yeah.
yeah, but we literally found none.
Nice.
So,
That's amazing.
I mean, we were very pleased, from that perspective. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously we have to attach these two modules together,
Mhm.
and trim out that connection. So there is still, a little bit of trim
Mhm.
work to do, but I mean, you can see in those bottom pictures, the finish level. I mean, the
It's
drywall is
done.
hung, finished, painted, at least first coat, and Yeah, I would call it a level 5 finish from my
Yeah.
perspective. I mean, they
Wow.
did a really
That's
nice
amazing.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Well,
you can also have design interventions as you build more and more of these to identify. I mean, there were no cracks here, but um, there are sort of usual suspects for where those cracks typically occur, and you can design around those. At
nice.
least the cosmetic ones. Every
Yeah.
now and then you may get something major. When I say major, is somebody has to come out and do it from like the factory, but most of these can just be done by a regular finisher on site, and usually you'll see these around any openings, doors, windows, where the boxes go together, all of that stuff. But
Yeah.
it's relatively easy to design and have some trim pieces or like a picture frame around windows, and that kind of helps with those cracks. But there's several things, and maybe on a future webinar we can talk about what some of those might be. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is
That's
just
great.
one of hopefully many that we'll build under this program.
Well, I want to end there and just say that we would love to follow your journey on this. And Ankur and Rob, thanks so much for sharing it with us. But I want to see, heat pump water heater, the heat pumps, the final finishes. I want to hear about your ACH. I think there's just so much to learn here, and I think it's, boy, just a great example of what can be done around industrialized construction. So we'll set up a time to have you back, Rob. Also keen to hear about your IBHS visit with Fortified. I know we're talking about bringing a whole group of EVA builders down there, because I think we had 3 different sessions from Fortified. Of course, the Fortified Wind, which you're talking about, but also the Fortified Wildfire program, and then kind of a talk of how IBHS views the world, from cost of insurance going forward and how we can help as builders. So lots of great conversations there. But yeah, we'll reach out, Rob. We'll set up a meeting and have you back. Of course, this is recorded. It'll be up at eba.org on our learning management system, and then it'll also be at Better Homes, Better Future podcast. And I'm already thinking of 10 of my friends I want to share this with as we sit here today. So Rob and Ankur, thank you so very much.
Hey, Aaron, before we sign off, I just want to make
Yeah.
sure you guys saw Ryan put a comment in the chat there about the ResNet board approved an offsite construction pilot program that they're about to announce. So that's big stuff.
That's
That's
big stuff.
awesome.
And I guess, Ryan, I would also say it might be great to have you back with us and talk about the implementation of that program. Because if this can be done at the factory level at scale, boy, that's a game changer, don't you think, Rob?
That is where we need to go.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Aaron.